So I am at a birthday party and there is this delicious home-baked cake, which is absolutely amazing, but I'm not having any of that, and that's fine. I feel completely okay about that. But there are some strawberries that I'm gonna dig into. So yay! So rainy Lusaka, day 10, it's going well. My sugar cravings have dissipated, so that's wonderful, such a relief. But what I'm really struggling with more is actually the refined carbohydrates, because in the past they have been what I've reached for as a snack. So I've mentioned before, like if I'm a bit hungry, I'll grab like a rusk or maybe like a wrap with a bit of butter on it, and I can't do that now. So I'm having to find other healthy snacks that are not so much carbohydrate based. So I'm eating a lot of nut butter still, but I've expanded my range, so it's not just almond butter now, I've included others in there. But I need to find other snacks and I need to be prepared. Want to be healthy? Healthy snack on the go? You might reach for healthy energy bar. Whole grain. You eat this, 2.5 teaspoons of sugar. 3 teaspoons of sugar. Also, I'm finding I have to pay a lot of attention to make sure my meals, my proper meals, are healthy, well balanced, and that I'm eating enough as well, so that I don't get so hungry, you know. So I'm paying a lot more attention to that, and I'm really trying to increase my intake of healthy fats. So that's a big thing for me. So this morning, instead of my usual jungle oats, oatmeal porridge, I'm trying something new. This is what I'm having for breakfast. I butchered the eggs a little bit, but I'm sure they'll taste delicious. So it's eggs and avocado, lots and lots of healthy fat, and not a carbohydrate in sight. So let's have a look at some sweets. And I have here just a bog standard dairy milk chocolate. This is 80 grams here. And they have kind of hidden the nutritional information there under the flap. I don't know how many of you actually would ever lift that flap. But anyway, if we have a look, we see that per 100 grams, there is 58.5 grams of sugar. So essentially almost 60% of this is pure sugar, right? But what I find interesting is that they then tell us how much sugar you're actually going to ingest per serving. But when you look at this, so it says you're going to ingest 23.4 grams of sugar per serving, okay? Doesn't sound too bad, perhaps. But a serving, if you look closely, in their definition, is half of this bar. How many of you are just going to eat half of it? I'm not. I'm going to eat the whole freaking thing, right? So if you eat the whole thing, you're getting almost 47 grams of sugar. And that translates into almost 12 teaspoons of sugar. So you eat this, it's 12 teaspoons of sugar. I want to measure that out for you so you can see it. So this is the amount of sugar in one of those chocolate bars. Yep, 12 teaspoons of sugar. There you have it. 6.5 teaspoons of sugar. Jelly babies. So this packet is 75 grams, and if you look at the nutritional information, they're telling us that one serving is 25 grams. So they're essentially saying you only eat a third of this per serving. Now, if I were to give this to my kids, do you think they would eat just a third of it? No. They'd polish off the whole thing. And if you eat the whole thing, that's almost 9 teaspoons of sugar right there. Bam. So you know how we've been duped into thinking that fat is bad for us, cholesterol is bad for us, and then it turns out that nothing could be further from the truth, that these healthy fats are absolutely essential for our health and for our brain. And actually, during this whole time, the culprit has always been sugar and refined carbohydrates that break down into sugar quickly. Those are the ones we need to lower. Fat, our diet should really comprise about 60%. That's how important they are. And if we look at cholesterol, which has been vilified for decades, even continues to be so today, it is an essential essential, fundamental nutrient for your neurons, so for your brain cells to function properly. And for your brain to get the cholesterol, it needs a carrier molecule, so taking it from the blood to the neurons, and that turns out to be LDL. And we've labeled LDL as bad, but all it is a carrier protein making sure that your brain is getting the cholesterol it needs. But what happens is that the LDL gets oxidized and hence damaged and can't do its job properly. And what does that damage to it? Sugar. Sugar is the problem, not the LDL. We have to change our attitudes towards fat and cholesterol. Sugar is the problem. So, big moment for the household here is I'm getting rid of the sugar. So this is our sugar jar that we use for our tea and coffee, my husband, my kids as well. And today we're dumping it. No more. And instead, I'm gonna put some xylitol in there. And let's see if my husband and my kids even notice, because xylitol tastes just like sugar, but without all the dangerous side effects of sugar. So this is our new sugar jar. Of course, because I'm on my plan and I'm not taking any sweeteners at the moment, I'm not digging into this yet. Right. Who likes chocolate? Me. Okay, so I wanted to see how much sugar is actually in this stuff. So in the Nesquik, there is 75 grams of sugar per 100 grams of product. So that means that 75% of this is just sugar. And then in the hot chocolate comes in a little bit better, only 66 grams of sugar per 100 grams. But then what I find quite interesting is that the Nestle, they're saying that to make a cup of hot chocolate, you're going to need 20 grams of this stuff. So that's one serving, 20 grams. But these guys are saying you only need 10 grams to make a serving. So really how much sugar is going to be in that cup of chocolate will depend on how many teaspoons of this stuff you're putting in. But generally, for a cup of drinking chocolate, you will be looking at between 3 and 4 teaspoons of sugar if you use these two products. I felt so good after my breakfast yesterday with the eggs and the avo, so high fat. I mean, it kept me full all the way to lunchtime. I wasn't hungry. I didn't need a snack or anything, so that was amazing. So I am having the same today again. And today my eggs look a little bit nicer. They did a very interesting research study on rats where they basically gave them cocaine so that the rats became addicted to the cocaine. And then they gave the rats a choice. You can either continue with your cocaine or you can have sugar. Guess which one the rats chose? Yep, they chose the sugar. 94% of all the rats preferred the sugar than the cocaine, which they were addicted to. And this was even when they made it harder for the rats to access the sugar. The rats still preferred the sugar than the cocaine. Why? Well, it turns out that the sugar has a much more powerful effect on the brain than the cocaine. And the same can be seen in humans, it turns out. And actually, when they do brain scans of humans, the same areas of the brain light up when you take cocaine as when you take sugar. Fascinating. When you eat sugar, it stimulates the release of these natural opioids and dopamine in your brain. And that stimulates the brain, and that's what makes you feel really good, yeah? But then the brain doesn't want to get overstimulated, so it has this protection, natural inbuilt protection system to prevent overstimulation and hence damage to the brain, essentially, right? And the way it does this is that it down-regulates the receptors. And essentially what that means is that the next time you eat sugar, you have to eat more of it to gain the same effect. And this is, of course, how addictions come about, because you need higher dose of the substance to get the same pleasurable effect. So, day 13, almost 2 weeks, almost halfway. It's going okay, but it's certainly not easy, for sure. And the thing is now that obviously I've cut out all the sugar, and that's going quite well. I'm handling that okay. But in addition to that, of course, I cut out all the processed refined carbohydrates. And now, in addition to that, I have also removed all grains that contain gluten. So that's all wheat products, and also even my jungle oats, my oats in the morning. So I'm not doing that anymore. And you might wonder, is she going crazy? Why is she doing this, But the more I read about it, the more I have to ask myself, why are you putting this stuff in your body? And I'll tell you a little bit more about gluten later, but it turns out that the vast majority of the world's population is indeed intolerant or sensitive to gluten. And for you to be sensitive to gluten and for your body not to react well to it, you don't have to experience digestive symptoms, not at all. You can still be sensitive to it. And what tends to happen is that you get inflammation in your body and you get inflammation in your brain. And of course, scientific research shows inflammation in the brain connected to all your degenerative illnesses such as dementia, Alzheimer's, and so on. And one of the main reasons I'm doing this is for good brain health, for clarity, for, to protect myself, to be strong and healthy for the future. So why would I want to put this stuff in my body? So I'm just going to try this and I'm going to see, do I feel different? Does it make a difference in my life, And up until this point, I have to say that I am experiencing much more greater clarity. There's no brain fog whatsoever. And I never thought that I had lack of clarity or that I had brain fog. I always thought, oh no, I'm very, clear in my head and in my thinking. But I have just achieved another level. I'm just experiencing this other level now, which I didn't know existed. And that for me is mind-blowing. So that is why I'm determined to see this through and see where this will take me. Very, very exciting. So I wanted to have a look at yogurt. Here I have Parmalat strawberry yogurt. And in this, per 100 grams, there is 10.4 grams of sugar. Now that is the same more or less as what we saw in the soft drinks. So that's a lot of sugar. Now if you eat this whole thing, this is 175 grams, then you get 4.5 teaspoons of sugar. Had a look at another one, Zam milk, pretty much the same. This one, if you eat this, 4 teaspoons of sugar. And I also chose Kefalos, this is the vanilla one. And in this one, there's actually only 2.5 teaspoons of sugar, but that's still pretty substantial. 30% of this tomato sauce, sugar. Sweet chili sauce, over 50% sugar. But it hasn't been easy. Sure, it's quite tough sometimes. So, for instance, I don't consider myself an emotional eater at all. I eat when I'm hungry, I stop when I'm full, and I hardly ever overeat. But now that I have cut out the sugar, the processed carbohydrates, and now the gluten, so everything wheat-based in particular, I have cut out my go-to snacks. And of course, I'm not doing alcohol either. And I'm finding that I want to grab one of those snacks or maybe have half a glass of wine. We're not talking a lot here. For instance, I keep talking about my rusks. I would love to have 1 or 2 rusks. It's not that I want to overeat on them. Even just that would satisfy me. But now that I can't go there, I realize that I was using those things to cope with some feelings or stress or whatever it may have been without even realizing it. So there was emotional eating going on without me actually realizing it, yeah. And that's quite a big realization for me. And what's happening now, of course, is that instead of reaching for those snacks, I have to sit with whatever feeling it is I'm sitting with. And that's not easy. That's not fun. That's tough. But I'm doing it. And I will tell you, so many occasions, I'm like, oh, let me just have one rusk. I'll be good tomorrow. You know, nobody would ever know. Of course, I would know. And I haven't done it, and I'm not going to do it because I've come so far now, and I don't want to mess it up for myself. You know, I really want to see what happens if I carry through with this to the end, you know, how I'm going to feel. But it's not easy. So it's day 17 now, morning, and it's going okay. I kind of feel it's becoming a habit because when I walk past, say, some bread or something, I feel, well, I don't eat that anymore. But there's still a few times where it's tough. So for instance, this weekend, it's my daughter's birthday, and I'm looking on Instagram for cakes, these amazing chefs producing the most incredible cakes, and they look just so delicious. So I'm looking through trying to choose one for her, and my mouth literally starts watering. And then my husband calls, he's still traveling, he's still away, and he's just ordered room service, this incredible cheesecake with cream and ice cream and meringue. And he's showing me this on video call, and I'm just, oh my God, you know, I don't want to see this, you know? So that was a bit tough. But otherwise, like I said, it's kind of just habit now. This is the way I eat. One thing I have noticed is that I have definitely lost some weight, and I don't weigh myself, but I can feel it. And I'm not trying to lose weight with this at all, but yeah, I can feel it here. There's not a lot left, and actually the stomach muscles are starting to come through and show now, which is not a bad thing. I'm not complaining, but it really has highlighted what a role sugar and, of course, refined carbohydrates play in weight gain. And I know when I was working as a nutritionist, a lot of people would always come and say, it doesn't matter what I eat, I gain weight. I've cut down on my food, I'm still gaining weight. And of course, what's happened there is that the cells have become insensitive to insulin. So the way it works, whenever you eat any sugar, refined carbohydrates, any carbohydrates at all, then that sugar has to go from your blood into your cells, and your body produces insulin, which works like the key that opens up the cells, right? So the sugar can go across and be used as fuel in the cells. But when you've eaten a lot of sugar and refined carbohydrates for a long time, and for a lot of us, it's like decades we've been eating this stuff, what happens is that your cells become insensitive to the insulin. You develop insulin resistance. So basically the insulin doesn't work so good anymore. It doesn't open the door to the cells for the sugar to go into the cells and be used as fuel. And instead it goes straight to fat storage because it has to go somewhere. So in that situation, whatever carbs you're eating will go to fat rather than as fuel for your cells. So literally your cells could actually be starving while you're still putting on weight, while you're still gaining fat. Yeah. So that's quite common, especially in this day and age, right? And that's like what happens before you develop diabetes. So what I've been consciously trying to do is up my fat intake drastically. Healthy fats, you know, it's not like I'm eating cooking oil. For goodness sake, don't do that, you know. Healthy, good fats. So for instance, in the morning, I'll have my bulletproof coffee where I blend coffee with a tablespoon of butter. And I'm so happy now I've found grass-fed butter and a tablespoon of MCT oil. So I blend that together. That's the first thing I take in the morning. I eat at least one avocado a day. I'm snacking on nuts and nut butters. Now when I make like a shake, I put all my superfoods in there, and I'm putting, you know, at least 2 tablespoons of linseeds in there to also up my fat intake. So I'm very conscious about upping my fat intake as much as possible because my carbs have come down and protein needs to be moderate. The fat is what's important. And when you do that, you change your metabolism so you literally become a fat burning machine. And I think for a lot of people out there, that's kind of what has to happen to help them lose weight, you know? But yeah, I can definitely feel that I've lost some weight. Most of us, we realize how addictive sugar is, right? And therefore why it's quite difficult to come off it and we get withdrawals and all of that. But we often don't realize how addictive grains are, particularly those containing gluten, like wheat. And this is one of the reasons it's been very hard for me to remove wheat during this time. Because our grains today are completely different from the grains our ancestors ate. It was like in the 1700s that a scientist, Dr. Gregor Mendel, discovered how you could like crossbreed plants, if you will, to create new varieties. And since then, we've been experimenting and playing with this and come up with incredible varieties of grains. And the grains that we can produce today contain up to 40 times more gluten than even just a few decades ago. And the gluten in our grains today is more addictive than ever. And here's why. So when gluten enters your body, it gets digested by the stomach and you get these polypeptides, and they can cross your blood-brain barrier. So basically they can get into your brain. And there they bind to our opiate receptors. These are the same receptors to which morphine and heroin bind and give you that high, right? And also why they're so addictive in their nature. So I don't know if you've experienced this, I'm sure you have, that rush of pleasure when you eat like a bagel or a scone or a croissant. You are not imagining it, and you're not alone. It's because the gluten from the wheat is binding to your opiate receptors in your brain. So given this, is there any wonder that food manufacturers are trying to pack in as much gluten as they can into their products, right? Because they're so addictive. And therefore, is there any wonder that so many of us, including me, have become addicted to these products? You know, like I said before, we realize that things like sugar and alcohol, yeah, we feel good and we want to come back for more and they're a little bit addictive, but who would have thought like your whole wheat bread and your oatmeal porridge in the morning are also addictive? And why is this a problem? It's a problem because gluten fuels inflammation in our body, inflammation in our brain. And we know now that inflammation is at the core of every degenerative disease that we know of, pretty much. Diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's, dementia, and so on and so on and so on. Gluten fuels inflammation. For instance, I love Dr. Perlmutter. He's a neurologist, and he reckons that gluten is this generation's tobacco. So we had a birthday party today. My daughter turned 9, and this is a banana chocolate with cream cake, and it looks absolutely amazing. Some biscuits, and here is another one with chocolate. But I didn't have any, and it's okay. But it was very difficult to cut the cake and not lick my fingers. I had to really think about it to make sure I didn't do that. Morning, it's Sunday morning, day 21. I've just woken up. I'm sitting here drinking my bulletproof coffee, and we had a party for my 9-year-old yesterday, a birthday party, and quite a lot of cakes. My mother baked this amazing cake with chocolate in it, and normally, on the day after like this, I would love to have a piece of cake with my coffee. And it's sitting in the fridge, looking very yummy, but not today. And it's okay. It's okay. It would be nice, but it's not a craving. It's just like, yeah, it would be nice. Day 23. I must say this weekend just gone was quite tough. I'm finding the weekends so much tougher in general than my everyday weekdays. And I think it's just because my weekdays are so structured. I'm busy with work and, I bring my food and whatever I brought, that's what I eat. There's no choice. It's simple. Weekends, however, yeah, there's a lot of choice. And like this weekend, it was my daughter's birthday. And, with the cake and the quiches and there's beautiful food. It was okay, I managed, but then no alcohol. I was drinking soda water the whole time. It's okay. But come the evening, I was really, really struggling. I had huge cravings for cake and for anything carbohydrate, really. But I was fantasizing about the cake, and that was really tough. I was white knuckling it, to be honest, white knuckling it. But I wasn't going to give in because, I really want to succeed on this challenge, but it was really tough. And then in the evening as well, my husband and kids, they did this beautiful toasty, like toasted sandwich with cheese, So that was tough as well. So something that really surprised me is that, I'm 3 weeks in now and I'm still experiencing such intense craving. I didn't think that would be the case. I thought we've gotten over the craving stage by now. So that's a bit scary for me. But then I was reading up about it and it seems that there can be external things, exposure to toxins, for instance, that can trigger cravings to sugar and carbohydrates. Things like exposure to mold or mycotoxins or any of the hundreds of chemicals that you would find in your food or pesticides, herbicides, anything really. But that these toxins can trigger severe cravings for sugar and carbohydrate. So I'm thinking perhaps that something like that might have played a part. I'm kind of hoping, so that, it's not that I'm still kind of have the sugar addiction. I would like to think that we're kind of over the worst of that. But I do know that there is a reason behind everything, So it's just figuring out what caused that severe craving. But anyway, it's over. Monday morning, zero craving, felt great, and moving forward. I am a little bit concerned though, because I'm thinking, well, what happens when I finish the challenge? Because this time when the craving came, one of the main reasons I didn't give in is because of the challenge, because I don't want to fail on the challenge. But if the challenge is no longer there, it's completed, then would I have given in? And the answer to that is probably yes. So that scares me a little because I would like to be able to continue this long term, but let's see what happens. This weekend, I discovered another food that has sugar that I really didn't expect would have sugar. It came as a bit of a shock to me, and that was biltong. Yep, biltong has sugar. There you go, sugar. Gotta check the ingredients.